I would always say that life is a linear path. And I think a pop culture term that's popular right now is, what's your side quest? It doesn't matter what you're doing in life. Just make sure you love it and you have a passion for it and that you believe in it. Don't do things because people tell you you can or can't do it even. You got to rely on your own soul searching. I think passion fuels motivation, which fuels hard work, which fuels possibility. And so believe in yourself, work hard, dream big, never give up. Put your mind to it and you can accomplish anything and make impossible into possible. And that's how our dreams can come true.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Path Found. This is the podcast where we unpack the winding, messy, and meaningful journeys that lead to the work we love and a life that feels right. I'm Monica Argandonian, and each week I'm going to sit down with someone whose path didn't follow a straight line, but it still led them to purpose and fulfillment and often surprising success. These are real conversations about mentorship, pivots, networking, self-doubt, mistakes that we all make, and what it means to find direction when the map runs out. These stories are here to inspire and guide you. We'll dig into the things school didn't teach, like how to navigate career twists, life lessons, and big transitions. If you like what you hear, please share the podcast with a friend, subscribe, and leave us a review. You can also find us on Instagram at PathFound Podcast or online at KeystoneNetwork.org. There you can send in your comments, suggest guests or topics, or even apply to be a guest yourself. This podcast is for you, my students, my peers, and anyone figuring it out as they go. As a longtime teacher and anthropologist, I've always believed in the power of stories. They remind us we're not alone and that it's okay to change your mind, take a different route, or still be unsure of what comes next. This is my pivot too, and so I'm glad to have you on this journey with me. Now let's get started. We dive into our first guest. I want to start by telling you a bit about why I'm doing this and how I got here. To put it simply, my path has never been straight. I changed my college major 5 times. I transferred schools 3 times. Took 6 years to graduate. I didn't end up working in the field I studied. In fact, I've worked in politics, advocacy, education, fundraising, research, you name it. And here's the thing, I didn't always have a clear plan. And I know I'm not the only one. We ask kids from a young age, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we keep asking, all the way through college. But the truth is, most people don't know. And that's okay. We were told, pick a major, stick with it, graduate, land a job you'll keep for decades. But that world doesn't exist anymore. It probably never did. Some people know exactly what they want to do and they go for it. That's great. But for many of us, it's a constant process of trial, error, reflection, growth. You figure it out as you go. I graduated from USC's film school. My graduation ceremony was incredible. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas handed me my diploma. I walked out of the auditorium to the theme of Star Wars. And the next morning, I had no job, no plan, and a lot of questions. My first interview was a disaster. I knew I had to learn how to navigate this world and fast. And it turned out the film industry wasn't for me. I took jobs that made sense. Some I loved, some I didn't. I taught high school chemistry, even though I never imagined being a teacher. I worked on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. after deciding on a whim during a field trip that I wanted to be part of that world. I moved to D.C. with 2 months' salary, no job, and a list of names for informational interviews. I did get hired in a senator's office and stayed for a couple years, moving back to L.A. to work in her state office, and then I pivoted again. At one point, I scooped ice cream. I worked in a coffee shop. I taught elementary school. I worked in development. I was 30 with a film degree asking myself, what am I doing? At one point, I decided to pursue a master's in anthropology. Why anthropology? Well, it was one of my many undergrad majors, but I was also just curious about people, about culture, about how we make sense of the world. And that degree led me down a completely unexpected path. While traveling through remote Modoc County in Northern California, I walked into a bar, met 2 cattle ranchers, and that conversation turned into a research project, then a thesis, then a doctorate. I learned everything I could about ranching, land use, and public lands. I eventually got my PhD, wrote about ranchers and environmental conflict, worked on major environmental legislation, and now I teach environmental science and policy at a California State University. I'm also a first-generation college graduate. I've been broke. I've been scared. I've made choices out of necessity, but I've also had incredible mentors, community, and just enough scrappiness to keep going. And that's what I want to give to others. So why this podcast and why now? After 2 decades of teaching and advising students, I've realized we don't do enough to prepare young people for life after school. We talk about degrees, but not how to find work that feels purposeful. We don't talk enough about rejection, starting over, or navigating change. We don't teach students how to network, how to build a career path, how to ask for help, or how to make sense of a job market that's shifting fast, with AI, automation, and rising education costs changing the game. Some students thrive in college, others hate it. And yet we tell everyone the same thing. Go to college, get a degree. But what happens if that path isn't right for you, or not right at that moment? And that's where Path Found comes in. This podcast is part of a bigger vision. I started a nonprofit called Keystone Network, and we're working to support young people, especially those without access to mentorship or guidance, as they navigate the complex transition from education to career. You can learn more at keystonenetwork.org. So what is Path Found really about? It's not just about careers. It's about people. It's about the vet who became a high school swim coach, the therapist who became a YouTuber, the botanist who owned his own business but opted for a government job, the entrepreneur who failed a lot, and the architect who now works in comics. It's about you and anyone wondering what comes next. Each episode, you'll hear a real, unfiltered conversation with someone who built a meaningful life by taking an unexpected path. We'll talk about mentorship, networking, finances, failure, doubt, identity, and resilience. We'll talk about the stuff no one teaches you in school, but that you absolutely need to know. And I want you to be part of this. Follow us on Instagram at PathFound Podcast to suggest questions, recommend guests, join the conversation. This is your podcast too. And one final thing. This is all new to me. I'm not a professional broadcaster. I'm not loud or flashy. I'm learning as I go and finding my voice with each episode. But I'm showing up with sincerity, curiosity, and a love of people's stories. That's what I promise you. So thank you for being here. I hope these stories inspire you, guide you, and remind you that your path doesn't have to look like anyone else's. In fact, it probably won't, and that's okay. That's more than okay. So let's get started. Our first guest is David Camarena, a licensed marriage and family therapist who's now a successful YouTube content creator. His story is one of reinvention, self-awareness, and following your instincts, even when it doesn't make sense on paper. So let's dive in, and welcome to Path Found. Today, we are super lucky to have as our guest David Camarena. He has gone from marriage and family therapist to a content creator and currently has his own podcast, Today I Grew Up. But that wasn't always the plan. So let's go back. What did you think you wanted to do when you were growing up, David?
Great question. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. And then I grew up and realized I was afraid of heights. So that wasn't going to work. I was always into music. My dad, he always would play oldies for me in the car, like Elvis, Beach Boys. And I didn't know I was going to be a musician yet, but I was involved in school as a trumpet player. And I started playing guitar, and I'm all self-taught, outside school. And then I just started jamming with my brother in the room. He started playing drums. He was a drummer. We found out, and I was a guitar player, and I started singing and writing songs. And eventually it just led to being in a band. And then but at the same time, my mom pushed me to finish school. You got to get a job, all the responsibility things. But yeah, I think I went through phases of I'm going to be an astronaut to, okay, maybe I want to be a musician, but I don't know how that works, to I think I might be a chiropractor. I have a long story, but I don't know what you want to pick apart first.
Well, let's go back. Go back to high school.
Okay.
In high school, that's where you discovered music and being in a band. Were you a good student? What was high school like? What were you like?
I grew up in private school, so I was a very sheltered kind of, setting. But I was also free to explore myself in terms of musically. I had I was in choir. And so I learned how to sing and harmonize. I had a great band teacher who taught me how to read music and how to, play on beat or something. And then I joined a worship band at school as well, because I was a Christian academy. So we learned how to play in a band setting in front of a lot of people. So I kind of learned how to get over my fears and worries about performance as well. So I feel like high school was a great training ground for me to learn my skills as a musician. But yeah, that's to answer that question.
So then when you graduated, you went to college?
Yeah. So I didn't have a summer break. My mom's like, "You're going to college." I'm like, "Can I just get a summer break?" She's like, "No, you just gotta start now because you don't want to waste time." And I'm like, "Why? What's the hurry?" So my mom signed me up for a chiropractic college in LA. Because it was cheap, and my cousin had gone through it, and she became a chiropractor. And I was like, "I don't even want to be a chiropractor. Why are you signing me up for this?" And my mom was like, "No, you can do your generals there. If you change your mind, you don't want to be a chiropractor, that's fine. Just get college credits right away." And so they're really quick courses, 8-week courses. So I got roped into there. And then I realized I don't really like chiropractic, training, but I took a psychology course along the lines there. And I'll never forget, like, that changed my life. I was like, I think I want to pursue psychology because I've always been interested in human behavior and how people work. And why not get paid to talk to people? That sounds cool to me. So I started pursuing psychology after that.
And you never thought to major in music?
No, because I always saw music as a hobby and not a career, especially because I was into punk rock music. And I never saw punk rock as like, oh, that's a real career. Until later. I discovered it's a real career later. But at the time, I felt like it's not a real career. Like, I just didn't think it was.
Well, and I think that's pretty typical.
Right.
People go to college to get a degree that they think is going to lead straight to a job. And we often dismiss the arts as, oh, you can't get a job there.
I remember yelling at my mom respectfully as much as I could and telling her, I don't like how society's set up. I told her, I'm really good at being creative. I'm really good at arts. I'm really good at music. Why can't I get paid a bunch of money to do that? And my mom even looked at me like, well, I guess it's possible, but she just didn't see it either. I think it was hard for her to see that because she didn't have anybody in her life that was making money off art. And I think that's something that I wish it was explained to me better when I was young because I was impressionable. I really thought you couldn't make a living in art. I didn't think it was a thing.
Yeah.
So I just kept pursuing psychology.
Yeah, and I think, parents are cautious and it's a tough field. But all right, so you end up in psychology. You do like it.
Yeah.
And then where do you go from there?
From there, I started jumping into the mental health circuit. So I started working with autism. So the first 4 years of my field was working with autistic children. I would say ages 3 to 17. And this was in-home services. And I also worked with teens later on in foster youth settings and teens with probation from committing crimes as well. And then after that, I did adults in mental health crisis and teens in mental health crisis, transitional age youth from 17 up to 55 years. I did inpatient, outpatient, schools, clinics, you name it. I did everything but private practice, I would say. And I loved it until I didn't. And I don't know. But yeah, there's a long story to that too.
How long did you do that?
I did that for almost 10 years. So 9.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Long time.
So you did like it.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah. For a while.
When was the moment you realized, maybe I want something different?
The problem is that I'm always really good at what I do when I apply myself 100% to it. And every 2-3 years, I'd always tell my coworkers and I would tell myself, if you're not being promoted in a job or respected for the work you do, you need to move and get out and gain more experience somewhere else. Don't settle for something that's not right for you. So I was always kind of chasing that what's next? What's on the other side of this? And when I got to the top of mental health, I realized I hated everything about it. The corporate, it was like a corporate system. There was a lot of red tape and paperwork and gray areas, which psychology is a gray field anyways. There's a lot of things we're still figuring out. And I realized I didn't want to be a mental health guy, corporate in a suit, chasing mental health dollars. It just felt wrong. And it went against my moral ethics of why I got into psychology, which is to help people. And all I did was spend time making money for agencies and talking about how we can scale in a bigger way, almost like building a corporation. And these clients became numbers to these people. And yeah, so one day I might write a book about the things I hate about the mental health field, which is more the corporate business side of it. And so after that, I needed to take a break because it was stressing me out. It really was. Like my anxiety was really bad at that time. And I realized I needed to do a career change.
But now you're 10 years in, right? A lot of people would say, now what? What do I do?
Yeah.
So what did you do? What happened?
So what's really crazy is as soon as I just realized that mental health maybe wasn't for me, I saw another window of opportunity and because my anxiety was always kind of there, instead of coping with medication, which I could have, because it was an option. It was offered to me. I never took it though. I decided to chase healthy coping skills. So what I did on the side when I was working mental health was, I'm going to collect toys because that's therapeutic for me. I'm going to play music and write songs and perform with my band because when I play shows, I get so kind of like somebody climbs a mountain or works out in the gym. Playing shows live was my release in that way. It just felt so good to sing my heart out, sweat on stage with a bunch of friends and just get a lot out, with music. And that was therapeutic. And so I was planting those seeds since my early 20s and it took almost 10 years, but I realized, hey, I can make money with content. Hey, I can make money with my band. I scaled those things on the side as I was pursuing my mental health career, being serious with that. I started growing music. I started growing content creation. And eventually I started making money on it. And that's when my whole worldview changed. And I realized, whoa, I can actually make money on art. This is cool. And so I didn't look back, at a certain point.
So you had played in a band even while you were working as a mental health professional.
It was always a side hobby. Thing.
So you didn't lose that. Mm-hmm. But that's a big leap, right? You went to a band and maybe the band, not even so much, but how did you even get into content creating?
So because I love to share things. I think that was something that I realized about myself is that I wanted to help people, number one. And number two, I love to share things like an artist would, I guess you would say. There's some artists who maybe paint in secret and never show their paintings. I was the opposite. I wanted to create art to share with people to maybe help them feel spark of joy or help them feel inspired or help them feel motivated. And so that was kind of my fuel, but it also at the same time was therapeutic for me to get that out. And, helping people in the psych field was really awesome. And I noticed when I would produce a song someone clicked with, they told me, oh, your song pulled me out of a dark place. Your lyrics did, or your song did. Or they would tell me, oh, your videos brought me joy. I was having a really bad day and I saw your video and it just made me so happy. And so I realized I'm like, whoa, I can actually change people in a different way, positively outside of therapy. And I didn't think that was possible. And so I was like, okay, cool. How far can I push this? Then if I actually treated it like a business or as a career, how far could I go with it? And I realized through the years, you can go really far with it. So if you dedicate yourself to something.
That's so incredible.
Yeah.
And the psychology degree helped.
It really did. Yeah, because I treat my audience now online as like a mental health client in a way. It's like a big brain. And I'm like, how do I keep feeling this brain? And what do they want from me? And so that was part of unlocking content creation as a full-time career for me, was giving the audience what they wanted from me, but also me balancing, okay, what do I want to do as well? Because you don't want to get stuck in this thing where it's like, well, I'm just pleasing the audience and then I'm just an empty shell either, So there is a balance with content creation, especially if you're making it a business.
What was, during that transition, the hardest thing to overcome or the biggest challenge or something that went wrong?
I think a lot went wrong when I was working full-time and trying to be in a band kind of part-time and also being a content creator part-time. So it's almost felt like I had two full-time jobs because all my time I wasn't sleeping, to be honest. I was working 9 to 5. Thankfully, I didn't have kids at that time. So I was able to just okay, I'm not sleeping. I'm going to write the song. I'm going to book the show. So I'd literally be doing something every day of the week, including weekends. So I'd be working 9 to 5, doing content creation at night after my job. And then I would play with the band every weekend almost. So I would literally be doing something with music or YouTube every day in addition to my 9 to 5 job. Yeah.
So you would say you definitely had to have the desire, right?
Yeah, there's a lot.
This wasn't just overnight that you...
I just loved toys so much and loved making YouTube videos so much that it was fun for me. So it didn't feel like work, even though it was work,
Did you have anybody that helped you, a mentor?
No, the only thing, I was always hard on myself, I think, growing up. I always thought I wasn't good enough. I was bullied in junior high. And I think that bully helped me realize that I can be strong on my own 2 feet. And I realized at that point in my life, it was like, maybe I can, if I can defeat a bully, I can defeat my bullies in my mind that stop me from being successful. So I actually didn't rely on others. I looked at others and looked at it as inspiration and draw inspiration from people, like my heroes, like my musical hero, Mike Herrera from MXPX. He's the reason why I play music. I went to his concert when I was a kid and I was like, I want to do that. And then he pulled me on stage one year, 2006, sold out show in San Diego. He's like, oh, you know this song on bass? And so I played Chick Magnet it's a very famous song from them. And I played it in front of the whole crowd. And that night I was like, okay, I want to be in a band. I want to do this.
That's awesome.
And so that's how Hard Like Work came from. And then I got to record with him later on and he got to perform with me. He sang on my songs. I recorded in a studio up in Bremerton, Washington. So we have a long history now. And it's just amazing what you can do if you have passion and you follow your passions. Doors open up and things you didn't think were possible become possible. And that's how I've always pursued what I do, is I do it with my full heart, my full passion, and the full belief that I can do it, even without knowing that I could do it. I just believe I can, and then it usually works out. Usually it does work out.
So if you're giving a young person advice, either they're in high school, they're in college, they're trying to figure it out, what would that be?
I would always say that, and this is something we had talked about previously off the podcast, was that life isn't a linear path. And I think a pop culture term that's popular right now is, what's your side quest? That's a saying that people say. And I always want to let people know, like, it doesn't matter what you're doing in life. Just make sure you love it and you have a passion for it and that you believe in it. Don't do things because people tell you you can or can't do it even. You got to rely on your own soul searching, dig deep within yourself and figure out, what is it that I'm good at? What is it that I love? Maybe it's something you're not good at, but you can get good at it, right? But if it's a passion driving you, I think passion fuels motivation, which fuels hard work, which fuels possibility if you believe in it. And so that'd be my advice is believe in yourself, work hard, dream big, never give up. Put your mind to it and you can accomplish anything and make impossible into possible. And that's how our dreams can come true.
Nice.
Best summary I have.
So, no, I think that's great. There is currently another podcaster out there who says people who say you should follow your passion are often broke. And that is the worst advice you could give to someone. No tax lawyer ever grew up wanting to be a tax lawyer, but yet they make lots and lots of money. So you should just follow what you're good at and go with that. What do you say to that?
I mean, I think the only good advice from that was follow what you're good at. I think sometimes that is a good idea. If you're good at something, that means that you should have a passion for it, but not necessarily either. I was really good at being a therapist, but I realized I needed a break from doing that. So I would say if your pursuit is money and that's what success means to you, you're probably going to be a miserable person because even if you do make it with money, it's never going to be enough for you, I think. People who I know that love money are still miserable. People that I know that are wealthy are still miserable. And I think even Will Smith, I saw him talking the other day on an interview, and they asked him, if you're rich, does that erase all your problems? Are you happy? And he said, no, like you're not happy just because you have money. So my definition of success, which is actually closer to the actual definition of success is meeting your goals, the goals you've set for yourself. If you've accomplished and met your goals, that's what success is. So to me, I've always looked at success as, doesn't matter what car you drive or how much money you have in the bank. Are you doing something you love and that you're passionate about? Are you doing something that you believe in? And that to me has always been my pursuit. I always tell people, I never wanted to do what I do to become famous or to be rich. That would be a very empty pursuit for me. Morally, I would not feel good about that. It's not fulfilling for me. What's fulfilling for me is doing what I feel called to do in this life, which is to be creative and passionate about what I do, but also spark joy, spark creativity, spark motivation, whatever it is, inspiration. If I can just make someone smile once watching my video or hearing one of my songs, that's why I do what I do. And that's successful to me. So I would recommend anybody hearing what success is or not, really soul search what that is, because it's not usually what you hear. Being rich isn't the end all, and it's not for me either. But I make enough money to pay my bills, and that's important. So let's be real about that. We got to pay bills. So.
And then just a little bit about your podcast. Why the name Today I Grew Up?
So yeah, Today I Grew Up is kind of an umbrella term that I created, a brand, as you will, which means childhood nostalgia. So it's basically embracing your inner child to heal it or to just not forget it, and I think a lot of times people grow up and they forget who they were as kids and they become this like a suit of adults that, oh, I'm an adult, so I have to do things. And I'm an adult, I can't collect toys anymore. I'm an adult, I can't have fun at Disneyland anymore. Oh, I'm an adult, I just have to pay bills and be quiet. It's just like, no, being an adult, having fun doesn't have an age limit. And so Today I Grew Up to me is kind of saying you can be an adult like me, still have fun, and it doesn't have to be weird, or it doesn't have to be odd, or it doesn't have to like have an age limit. To me, age is just a number. And I always feel like you're never told to have fun. And Today I Grew Up became moniker for me to hold on to, like to spread that joy that anything is possible. And we shouldn't forget our childlike state, who we were, because to be honest, kids are nicer than adults. So generally speaking. So that's why I kind of chose that name.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you have the work you do now doesn't feel like work. And to me, that is what it should be, right? If you're spending all this time, 40 plus hours a week in a job, that it should feel like it's something you just want to be doing anyway. And I have been fortunate to have jobs like that too. But you tell young people that who are really concerned about having to pay bills, not necessarily being rich, but just having to pay bills and pressure from parents and kind of these ideals and standards. What would you say to that? And especially for people who are either trying to think about their next steps or wanting to make a transition.
I would say just be really responsible. try to be as responsible as possible, because that's honestly what's going to make it or break it for you. I think if you just jump into your dreams so hard without a plan, that's kind of a recipe for disaster sometimes. Like when I quit my job in 2020 to become a full-time content creator, I only did it because my income was more than or equal to my paycheck from my therapy job. So at that point, I responsibly quit. And I remember it was a huge risk because I didn't know how much income I was going to pull in that year. But I also knew I believed in myself. And I also knew I wanted to invest in myself. And after almost 10 years of mental health, I was at burnout. I needed a break from that. And so I decided to take the risk, but it was a responsible risk. And I did it because I could. The income was matching. And so when I quit my job and finally became a content creator full time, it almost fueled my fire to make more money so that I can pay my bills even more. And to the point where I was just living comfortably. Yeah, but at the same time, I'm not going to say it was always rainbows and roses. I worked on YouTube, I want to say 5-6 years without a single real income from that. So I would work for free. YouTube, I was doing YouTube videos without getting paid. I was doing my band without getting paid in the past. So a lot of these things, because they were my passions, I did for free. But if you're planning to pursue this, try to find ways to scale income or make income. Make it a business, treat it as one, and you'll start figuring out how to make money. And I think what helped me was asking people or watching people, how do you make money from this? How do you monetize these things? Or watching other content creators, I started learning, how do I do this? And then I just figured it out on my own because I had the passion to figure it out.
Is this something you're going to be doing for a while? Is there a next step?
Yeah. So my goal right now is I keep scaling my numbers right now as a content creator. I have 1 to 3 million views a month consistently for the last 5 years. I'm always trying to see how many more views I can get. I'm also trying to increase my reach. I'm about to hit 250,000 followers on TikTok. I'm about to hit 200,000 followers on YouTube. So it's just always fun to kind of see those numbers grow. But to be honest, my only goal was to get 100,000 subscribers so I can get my shiny silver play button on my wall. And once I accomplish that, I'm happy. And I even tell people now, whether I get 1 million subscribers from here in the next 5-10 years or whatever happens, I feel like I've already made it because I get to call this my job. I'm my own boss. I set my own hours. It's not for everybody. I will say that. You have to have a passion for that. For me, it's the ultimate freedom. I feel like I broke the 9-to-5 matrix, and I love just being able to go see a movie on a Tuesday at 12 noon if I wanted to, because I'm my own boss and I can allow myself my own schedule. And so that was important to me. That was freedom for me. Playing punk rock music, expressing myself through art, getting paid for that. Same thing with YouTube and being my own boss. So,
but you also had to have discipline.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work. I didn't sleep for years to make it where I am today. I will say that. I barely slept at all, which is not healthy. I will say it wasn't healthy, but I'm in a healthier place now. I'm in a very healthy, comfortable place now, thankfully. Hard work paid off.
So if you could tell your 20-something self just one thing, what would it be?
Probably not to go to college, to be honest. You know, it's when I was young, the rhetoric was always like, go to college, go to college. And now with the rising costs of tuition, with the look at like the income you receive from your degree, sometimes it is hardly worth it to do it. I think sometimes the cost benefit is not there anymore. Things need to change in our country. I feel we have a huge problem with these greedy profits that these institutions are making, or the costs that are being driven by governments to increase the money that needs to be exchanged. And I think this is hurting people's futures. And people are getting in massive student loan debts. If I could tell my younger self all over again, I probably would say don't go to college. Explore your arts, try to make a living off that, have your parents support you a little longer to make it. And, who knows, I could have probably been more, I guess, established earlier, but I don't regret my path. I learned a lot. And now that I have this knowledge, I can share it with others.
Yeah, I think that's great. And or maybe even delay college. Maybe college is right, but not when you're 18,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So many of us don't know.
I didn't know what I was doing.
No, I didn't either. So where can we find you? How do we, if people want to follow you?
Yeah. So it's very easy to find. If you Google Today I Grew Up, one word, just how you spell it. Today I Grew Up, one word. You can find that on Google, and then it'll populate all my links. So I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I also have a website, todayigrewup.com. I sell some products there. And then I have my band, which is the same thing, Heart Like War. That's 3 separate words, Heart Like War, just how you spell it. And I also have a website, heartlikewar.com. And then links to everything, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. We have Twitter. We have everything, or X. We have all of it. So
That's great.
Easy to find.
Well, David, thank you so much. You found a passion and made a career out of it. And I think that's what we all want to do. You're also one of the nicest and most generous people I know, especially with your time. So thank you for that.
Try to help.
But it was great talking to you.
Yeah,
Thanks so
great
much.
talking to you too. Thank you for having me on.
If any of today's conversations got you thinking about your own path, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share the episode with someone who might need to hear it. You can find more stories, resources, and ways to get involved at keystonenetwork.org or follow us on Instagram at PathFoundPodcast. Whether you're navigating the unknown, making a pivot, or simply figuring it out one step at a time, just know you're not alone. The route may not be linear, but there's always a way forward. I'm Monica Argandonia, and I'll see you next week on Path Found.